Hello,
Hello?
this is Ben.
Oh, Ben, hi.
Hi.
Is anything wrong?
Everything's good. I'm gonna do a school project.
Yeah.
I think I may do a story about Uncle Danny, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and I was wondering if I can talk to you on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yes.
Sure. Probably about 2:30.
Okay.
I'll see you on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Okay, take care, Ben.
Love you.
Love you. Bye, Diane.
Bye.
All these combined, they melt into a dream, a broken angel sings from a guitar.
There.
You can sit where?
I'll sit there. I think that'll be fine. Doesn't really, yeah.
Just a song.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
All this for you about DN.
Hi. Ben. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, you're getting taller all the time. Have you kept getting taller or?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of
No, you do.
there.
You do look taller, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. Okay.
You can see us right now.
I think I can see. So, do you know what my project is about?
Yes and no.
Okay. So, I'm taking a storytelling class for my FYS. This is our final project where we have to talk about a memory from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So mine is visiting Uncle Danny's grave.
Right.
So, the first one is like, what do you think about this film being made?
We're both fine with it.
Yes.
Yeah, your grandfather and I are fine with it.
And,
It's hard to talk about, but
yeah.
we get through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because even to this day, it's difficult. Never gets easy. All of a sudden, I never knew what he was about. He came home one day and he came into the kitchen and he says, "Ma," I said, "Yeah, yeah, call me Ma." I said, "Okay, what's up?" And he says, "I joined the U.S. Navy." I said, "You what?"
Was crying like the wind down every lonely street that's ever been.
So when my project was starting out, I asked my dad if I could get the Final Cut Pro editing software. He decided that it would be too much money, which he's probably right, and that I should use iMovie, so I said, okay, sure thing. I talked about the project and how it was going to be about Uncle Danny. He enjoyed that, but he thought it was also going to be a very tough project, both emotionally and with all the work. And then Mom kept asking me about what kind of questions, because she's always nervous about that. And it all starts with my memory of walking in the grave when I was younger. It was just an ordinary tombstone. I remember my parents around me with my sister. I remember little things like that there was toys around the gravestone, and that I guess they were all in a row. I remember the gravestone being big, but that's probably because I was small. And about Uncle Danny, I really don't know a lot. I know that his death was an accident, but I was really unsure to ask my dad any questions about it. Because it was his son, and he wouldn't even go to. My dad wouldn't even go to like the memorial and veteran services because it was too tough for him. And I thought this project would be a good way to both learn more and start to catalog the history of my lost uncle, and to tell his story.
Do you remember how old you were?
No. Yeah.
It was a couple times, I'm sure, whenever we went down, right?
Summer day.
It's whenever we went to see Leaf and Janice, we did try to go see Uncle Dan's grave. You know that.
Right. And I don't have a lot of memory of it, frankly. I
Well,
guess
I
just
re-
remember the kids being there and pointing out
Yes.
where
There's
Danny's
a whole,
gravestone is. And
there's a whole row of veterans. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay.
And then they're all the same
Mhm.
stones. And then there's all these little something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the separate veteran section, it's the newer veteran section with a flagpole in the middle. And he is, if you're looking at the flagpole, he is to the left and a little bit forward of the flagpole. And his stone, they're all white marble look to him, although his has a little bit of a slate gray color to it. It's a little bit unique. And there's often stuff placed around it from people who have visited it. And we pointed that out to you and Elizabeth. We were, all four of us were there.
Mm-hmm.
After those questions about the memory, I started to ask the harder questions about Danny and Danny's life.
Because he was my immediate older sibling, we were very close, and we did a lot together. We spent a lot of time together. And that involved typical childhood, playing outside, getting into mischief and trouble, for sure. We did a fair amount of that together.
But he had a great personality and loved to talk. Oh my goodness, loved to talk. He could talk a leg off a table. And many, many friends, didn't he, him?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Many.
And everybody loved him.
He protected me. I mean, I remember times, and I remember one distinct time in high school where I was getting a little bit bullied, and he took it upon himself. He knew that, and he took it upon himself to talk to a few people involved, and the bullying ended. And I think it's important that we stick up for ourselves. So I don't know exactly. I have no memory of what he wanted to do after the war. But he and I were close. He was the fifth child of 7.
He hoped to become an architect. And I don't know if that's in your story, honey.
Yeah, well, after he got out of high school, he sort of tried different things for a year after he got out of high school, and he got a couple of jobs. And the last job he had when he got out of high school, so I don't like it. He said, I don't like it. Because I saw him walking home one day around lunchtime, and I said, Danny, I said, what are you doing here to work? He said, oh, Ma, I just left. I didn't like it. He says, it's not for me. And so a year from graduating, in June of '88, he joined the Navy in June of '89. and his ship was called the USS Antietam.
Mm-hmm.
And the name was from a famous ship that did battle in the Civil War. So he came home and he was so happy because he says, finally, he says, we're going to get out on the ship. He's all excited. And before he left, he saw, he made the rounds, saw all his friends. And then your dad, in April of 1990, when Dan came home, was in a play called The Brigadoon. And of course, your father wanted Danny to go and us to go. But then he came out to me in the kitchen a couple of days before, and he says, Ma, he says, what, Danny? He says, do you think Andy would be okay if I didn't go see if I didn't go to see Brigadoon? He says, because, I only have a couple more days left. He says, and I'd like to see all the rest of my friends one more time. I says, Andy will be fine with that. He won't mind. Well, he didn't go. And then at the end of April, he left. That morning I was working at Reading Massachusetts. And I said goodbye to him that morning, but he stopped by with Auntie Elaine. Auntie Elaine was driving him into Logan. And he said, Ma, I just wanted to say goodbye one more time. I said, great, Danny. And I hugged him and I said, Danny, you take care of yourself. You better take care of yourself. I love you. And he got in the car and I watched him go down the street with Elaine to Logan Airport. And that was the last I ever saw him alive. I used to kid with him. He said, before he left, he says, Ma, he said, when I get off ship, he says, we're going to Hawaii, Hawaii, Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong. I says, wow, that sounds like tough duty. I said, that sounds like you're going to have it made. See all these beautiful places. Sure, Matt, doesn't it? When the ship sailed, the first stop was Hawaii. And they all got off the ship to enjoy some land time in the fireworks July 4th. And he wrote and told me how beautiful it was. And that was the last time his feet touched the earth. When he left Hawaii, that was the last time. And he never got to all those wonderful places that he was going to go. It wasn't meant to be. And so after that, we heard a week later that there was August 21st, came a knock on the door at 8:30 in the evening. And when I went to the door, it's a parent's worst nightmare. There stood two naval officers. And they said, Mrs. Jones, I said, yes. May we come in? I said, I think I can't even explain it to this day. I think I just went into instant shock. Like, no. Denial. I can't even explain it to this day, my actions. So I said, come in. And I brought them out into the kitchen because it was just straight ahead. And I think Uncle Leith heard people, as did Alicia. And they came down. No, Levy came down. Oh, no, how was it? Yeah, he did come down. He came running down the stairs, and he said, Ma, what's up? And then he looked, and he saw what I saw, the two naval men. And he said, would you want to get on the phone and call him to come home? This is before I heard anything. And I said, no. I said, no, he's very busy. I said, no, it's all right if he's not here. I think back in my mind I didn't want him here to hear what I was going to hear. But I didn't know what I was going to hear. Then all of a sudden, not the chaplain, but the other naval officer brought out a letter. And he started to read the letter that I've read to myself in my mind for years and years and years. It's ingrained. And started out by saying, Dear Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we regret to inform you that today, August 21st, at 2:30 p.m., but they gave me naval time in the afternoon, on board the USS Antietam, your son, Daniel M. Jones, was electrocuted, and it was an accident. We deeply regret his passing and blah, blah. Never forget it. Well, all of a sudden, everything just went crazy. And Leaf's hugging onto me as tight as possible, and it was devastating. And Alicia came down, started screaming, Danny, not Danny. But on that fateful day, as the ship is steaming towards Kuwait, the U.S. Antietam was off the coast of Bahrain. You've heard of that, Bahrain, in the Persian Gulf.
In
And
war maneuvers.
Yeah,
War maneuvers.
war maneuvers.
Yep.
The ship going to assist the Iraqis. And it was off the coast of Bahrain. And it was 2:30 in the afternoon. I was told that Danny was up on deck and he had just finished an ice cream cone. And all of a sudden there was this warning that there was a ship's fire in the engine room. And so Danny, sometimes he got in trouble, but he always wanted to help people. And sometimes it did cause him trouble, but he always the first to help the person. Well, when he heard that, the alarm went off, of course, the ship's fire in the engine room. So come to find out, he was the first one to run down to the engine room, and a couple of his friends, I guess, were behind him. And I guess what he looked at was fire behind this panel. And I don't know why in God's name he did, but he was trying to help. He opened the door of this panel, and his last words were, I know. He looked at it and he said, holy shit. And when he did, the waves from the ocean rocked the boat, and when the boat rocked, it sent the panel right at Danny, that it was the panel was alive. And it hit him. It was amazing. It just made a tiny mark in his elbow. And I think he went flying under something. Brought him right into cardiac arrest, and they tried over an hour and a half to still bring him back. And come to find out, I only found out not that long ago that back in 1990, they didn't have defibrillators on the ship. And we lost him. and his friend. Airport. And when they drove us to Logan Airport, they drove the limousine into a hangar where we were sitting in the limousine just facing a blank wall so we wouldn't see what was going on behind us. And what was going on behind us was a big jet with his flag draped coffin and Navy men on both sides. Of course, you've seen the pictures in your lifetime, taking his body off the plane. So by the time they told us to get out of the limousine, we could see this picture in front of our eyes. So they instructed us to walk over near my boy's casket. And this was all done in silence, not a sound. And we just stood there, and the wind was just blowing us. And my daughter, Alicia, couldn't even look. She just turned around and had her head here. And we were all lined up as a family. And that's what we were looking at. And we watched them in silence take his body from the plane to the waiting hearse.
I was requested, they were looking for someone who was handy with woodworking. And I found it very odd. And so they called my name out of the platoon. And when you entered the military when you enlisted, you listed some of your hobbies and interests, and they knew what your hobbies and interests were when you entered the service. So they must have seen that I had listed as one of my interests was woodworking. And it was really more of an excuse to sort of pull me out of the platoon without sort of making some dramatic scene. But I found it unusual, but back then, when you're private in basic training, you did what they told you to do. And so I was pulled out of the platoon, and I was pulled into the headquarters building by my drill sergeant, and we traveled to a room, and when we entered the room, there were several additional people to include the company commander, the officer of the company commander. The drill sergeant was with me. There was an Army chaplain and a couple other folks. I don't recall what they did, but they sat me down on a couch similar to this, and they said, "We have a phone call for you, and it's your sister Elaine." And I said, "Okay." And finding it very unusual, and I was quite nervous at that point. I didn't know. I was young. I was 18 years old. I really didn't have any idea what was going on. And picked up the phone, and sure enough, it was Auntie Elaine, and she said Danny died. And I don't remember a specific description as to how he died. I don't remember specifically what she told me in terms of how he died. It's just that he died over in the Persian Gulf. And as we know, he was the second casualty over there. A second casualty tied to the Desert Storm, Desert Shield. And it was a non-combat death, accidental death. And he died aboard his ship. And I remember just crying. And very difficult to make sense of it all, particularly when you're only 18 and you're not home. You're being told this information in a foreign place, in a foreign building with foreign people, and no one really there no loved ones there to comfort you.
And these are pictures when your dad came home. They gave him permission to come home. He was in the Army at the time, the Army Reserves. I think he was in Alabama, but you can check with him to be sure. And when Danny passed away, they gave him permission to come home. And these are pictures of your father after everything was said and done, the funeral, and your dad leaving to go back to the Army in Alabama.
Flown back to Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I had to then resume the majority of my training. And so it was really hard to describe because Danny's death didn't really sink in until I got older, much older, frankly. And back then, I was just so young, it was just really hard to comprehend it, and just didn't quite seem real. Going back to basic training was probably the best thing ultimately. It was difficult after 4 days to then leave the comfort of my family and home, but to then go back to basic training was quite difficult, but ultimately it was one of the best things because for the remainder of basic training and then follow-on training, skill training, I was very busy, constantly busy, and so your mind is engaged and you're learning and you're meeting new people, and so it was a really good preoccupant to the alternative, which was to reflect that your brother died. And yeah. So comprehend it, and just didn't quite seem real and impossible. I mean, even at the wake, he had an open casket at the wake. There he was in his Navy dress uniform, and just very, very difficult to describe.
Since he died on August 21st, the news broke to the media. The nightmare week, waiting for his body to come home. The media was all over it. Coming to the house. The newspapers. One paper is so terrible. Boston newspaper is the picture, full length, of my poor dear husband. The picture of grief. I wouldn't even want to show you the picture. We were all over the papers. We were on local television. We were even on national television, and it's an awful thing to see television at night. And of course, we wanted to see the news. And my husband and I, at night, as the two of us, we saw our son's naval picture on the television. Now, that's pretty devastating. You can't believe you're looking at your own son on television. And then it's starting to say what they said.
Dan was my older brother, and interestingly enough, I'll always consider him to be my older brother. He would have been 46 on the 19th of this month, and I'm 44. And you know, he died back in 1990. He'll always be my older brother.
Hampshire. And I was just bumbling along, working, etc. But boy, the steam had gone right out of my sails. And that may be in her story, but ultimately, I just had lost so much energy that I decided to retire. And that was in June of 1992. And when I retired, we moved the whole family up to northern New Hampshire. While we were up there, maybe 2 or 3 years after we had moved up there, I had the most powerful dream. It's right in my head. Danny was a very tall man. And at one time he had a car which was made a lot of noise, etc., and blum, 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 etc.
He was 6'4".
And so I had this dream about 2 or 3 years after we moved up there.
To Pittsburgh.
In the dream, I hear the blum, 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 blum of the car. This is all the dream. I get up and I go to the door, and through the door comes Danny. What a dream.
Yeah. After the funeral.
And he says, I love you.
Had for us even today.
Mm.
Uh,
And I said, I love you too.
yeah,
And we hugged each other.
yeah,
And that was the end of the dream.
yeah. Yeah. You
But
told
what a
me.
dream.
Yeah, you told me. Huh? I've drank it too.
Stella.